Next morning we have breakfast and get ready for our city tour with a local guide.
Good morning. Well, you might say aloha in your country. Our country in German we would say Guten Morgen. And you're right here in the city center, and our bus is waiting just behind the hotel. And this morning I want to show you maybe the most important sites of Vienna. The highlights. We're going to see the famous show boulevard, the Ring Avenue, the Ringstraße, which goes around the city center of Vienna. We're going to see buildings like the State Opera House, the Parliament, the University, and so on. We're going to see most probably the beautiful blue Danube. Check if it's really blue. We're going to visit a big part of the Palace of Schönbrunn, which used to be one of the summer residences of the Habsburger, the Habsburg family reigning in Austria during more than 600 years. They had, of course, quite a lot of residences, and this is the most famous one. Still furnished, and we're going to see part of the Palace of Schönbrunn, and the tour is going to end in the city center. And I would say if everyone is here, we go to the bus. If you look to the left, you see the main entrance of the palace. We are going to walk to the palace. Schönbrunn, schöner Brunnen in German means beautiful fountain or beautiful spring. Schöner Brunnen. Please, let's stay together, right? So that no one gets lost. The view to the gardens and to the hill, on top of the hill, you see a monument called Gloriette.
As we climb up the stairs, we enter into the most spectacular room in the palace, the Grand Gallery, somewhat similar to the Hall of Mirrors at Versailles. The palace has 1,500 rooms, most of which are closed now, but the public tour does take you through several dozen rooms containing the original furnishings and decorations, which is enough to give you some feeling for life in the old days. So we take about 45 minutes walking through with our guide.
In this room, Emperor Franz Joseph I was born, and over there you see the bust of the last Emperor of Austria, Charles I. In this room, he signed the renunciation of the throne. Also the furniture is 18th century. So we continue. This is a portrait of Marie Theresa, who is considered as one of the most beautiful ladies in the 18th century. On the table you can see some letters.
And then typically the next stop on your city tour of Vienna would be a beautiful palace, the Upper Belvedere. So we drive through a couple more neighborhoods of town. And this is true whether you're on a private tour as we are or just one of the public half-day city tours. It is certainly worthwhile to take a half-day bus tour in Vienna because you do want to get out to see these couple of palaces, and they're a little tricky to get to on your own. We're standing in front of the Belvedere Palace. This is one of the real beauty spots of Vienna. It was occupied by one of the Dukes of Savoy, and he was a very wealthy man. He had 16 palaces scattered around the Austro-Hungarian Empire. This was his main palace, and he was a very important fellow because he helped to defeat the Turks back in the middle of the 17th century. If it wasn't for the Austrian army defeating the Turks at that time, we might all be speaking Turkish today, because that was the invasion by Turkey that was trying to conquer all of Europe. Instead, the Turks were defeated. The Austrians settled into expanding their empire and living the grand lifestyle.
And today this is where you find the picture gallery. Also, the water in front of the building has got the function to give the visitor the impression that the building is bigger than it is in reality. Because if it's not too windy, you see the reflection. And this gives you the impression. Also, Prince Eugene, he was one of the most brilliant generals, and his special merit was to push back the Turks to Asia, right? Out of Hungary, out of ex-Yugoslavia, and so on. And you see, as kind of illusion, the four cupolas in the form of Turkish tents. And we go now to the side of the gardens. So the first palace they made was the lower one. You would call it little bungalow at that time, right? And you see also there the center part is nicely decorated. Also there, the center part was open so that the horse carriages could go in. But the first thing that was constructed was the gardens, and then the lower palace, and then this one, right? So this is a very good example for Baroque architecture from the architect Lucas Hildebrandt. Also the facade, also inside. And where you see the balcony in the center part of this building, the Austrian State Treaty was signed in 1955. So if you want to have a quick look inside,